guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be creating this really cool double exposed effect in Photopea or Photoshop if you have it at home. Now this is something that's done very often in photography and has this really nice effect. We're going to be using a lot of techniques we already know how to use today in just a specific order. So first things first, when you open your file today, you're going to see two layers. One is hidden for now. The other one is named Portrait 1. You're going to make a copy of this. So you can hit Command J or Control J on your layer and you should get a copy. Hide the original for now. This is just the backup because we're going to be doing a lot of destructive things today, so it's always good to have a backup. Next, we really want this image to be super bright because we're going to be putting darker images on top. So we're going to add an adjustment layer of levels to increase the contrast. But we're going to do this destructively, which seems counterintuitive, but since we have a copy of our original, this is fine. To do this destructively, we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and these adjustment layers are done directly on the layer. It doesn't give you a separate layer like we usually get with this little button down here. So this is non-destructive adjustments. These are destructive adjustments, just so you're aware. So we're going to go up to Image Adjustments and hit Levels. And I gave you some numbers that would be helpful. It's just going to make your image look really, really bright. That's our goal for this. Okay. Press OK. You're going to see that your portrait is now super overly exposed, but that's not going to matter because we have that dark forest image that we're going to be blending in with it. Next, we want to select our portrait from its background to add a mask. Now, if we are using our selection tools, we probably can use one that's going to allow us to select the background and then inverse and select the portrait itself. Then we can add a mask. This is where you're going to give us your first check-in for today, just to show that you brightened the image and that you added a mask to it. Now we want to make a new layer underneath just to have a background color. So we're going to just make a simple blank new layer, drag it underneath our portrait, and just fill it with the gray. Whatever gray you'd like, something light enough that it kind of goes with the picture. You can take your paint bucket tool and just click on the back. And now you have a background. Now we want to unhide our forest image so we can see it. But we want the forest image only to be inside the shape of our figure. So we're going to use the selection we already made. What you want to do now is either hold down Control or Command, click on the thumbnail of the mask you made of the guy. So if I hold down Command since I'm on a Mac, if you're on a PC, Control, you'll see the silhouette of the selection I made. On my forest layer, with it activated, I'm going to add a mask again. Okay, this will be your second check-in for the day to see that you've added both masks. Now, we might want to be able to edit our forest image, but if I try to move my move tool right now, the image of the forest and the mask are connected. What I want to do is click on the little link between the two of them, this little link right between the mask and the photo. Click on the photo itself, the thumbnail of it. This will allow me to move the image without editing my mask. I want this image to be upside down, so the trees that are down here are actually pointing out of his head. So we're going to go up to Edit, Transform, and we're just going to flip this vertically. Okay, that means the trees will be up here. It's okay if yours is a little lower and some of the guy's hair is showing. We're going to hide that later. It's not going to matter. Our next step is to activate our portrait layer again. We're going to hide the forest just for now, and we'll get back to that later. We're going to take our portrait layer that we masked. We're just going to make a copy by hitting Command or Control J and hiding that original because we will be doing some destructive things to the copy. Just in case we get too heavy-handed, now we have another backup. Now what we'd like to do is make this portrait monochromatic, meaning one color, to fit in the color scheme with the forest. So with your portrait layer selected, you're going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and hit Desaturate. What that's going to do is basically make this image black and white. Now that it's been desaturated, it almost looks a little too blown out and white and may not work with the forest. So we're going to go back and darken some parts of it by adding another adjustment layer. Let's go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and I've given you some other values you can input to make this image a little darker in contrast. Now this will look better with the forest. Now the last thing we want to do to this is basically make this a little bit more tinted so it matches this kind of tone of the forest, because although it's dark, it doesn't have the right tone yet. So we're going to add another adjustment layer, Image Adjustments, and we're going to make a Hue and Saturation one. But because the image is in black and white, we must make sure we hit this little colorize button or nothing's going to happen to our image. I gave you some values you can use. It basically gives it like a blue tinge that matches the forest image really nicely. All right, 2, 12, 10, press OK. You'll see that he looks like a bluish gray. That's exactly what we want. When you're done with this, give us a second or third check-in at this point. Now we're going to right-click on this mask right here of our portrait, and we're just going to hit Apply. or apply mask. What that's going to do is flatten this to its own layer. Okay, so no more mask. Now it's completely flat. We're going to drag our portrait on top so it's above our forest, and we're going to turn our forest image on. Last thing we want to do for this, to really see through this, is to change the blend mode of our portrait layer to screen. So I'm going to grab my blend mode, change it to screen. Now I should see the forest and the gentleman. Next, we want to start hiding and showing different things on our layers. We want to select our brush tool, set our hardness to 0, and select the mask of our forest layer. Set your fill color to black, and softly paint the upper part of the head area. This is going to make it look like the trees are growing from the guy's head. Now we want to add a mask again to our desaturated layer. So we're going to select this up here, simply add a mask, and repeat the same thing. So we want to make sure we hide any lines that make this look like the top of his head is showing. So right now I'm just going to paint with this. Now if I get too heavy-handed, you can paint with the opposite color and it brings it back. I'm going to clean up the edges by kind of going around so I don't get that little white line I have, and I'm visibly seeing the forest more than the edges of this guy's body. Last thing I want to do is kind of make his neck area a little bit more visible for trees. So I'm just going to take my brush, make sure I'm on the desaturated layer, paint this area. As I paint this on the mask, I should be able to see a little bit more of the image, which is a little darker. I think it just gives it a nice illusion of the trees kind of popping through his neck. There we go. And now you have a double exposed image. And now that you have the technique, you can repeat the same skills with multiple images of your own. Be patient with this, be precise, and use your adjustment layers and masks.